So, I honestly agree with this post. You actually can't make this up. In response to the claim that 50% of the US FDA's budget comes from pharma, which is awful because the FDA is supposed to regulate pharma, the agency released an official statement saying it is only 47%. An executive order should be signed tomorrow making this zero. Honestly, what's the point of a regulating authority that gets half its money from the people they're supposed to regulate? No, from one subsection of these people. Remember, this is just pharma. The FDA is for more than just the drugs, right? It's the Food and Drugs Administration. How much of the money they get is actually from the food industry, I wonder? Now, you might be asking, what could the food manufacturers possibly have to do with it? Why would they give the administration money to get them to do anything? Well, let's start. This is from the sort of amended website for RFK Jr. And it has less issues now. It basically, I guess, gave up the issues that he didn't 100% agree with Trump on and focused on the four that perhaps Trump is going to tap him to manage or at least support him on, how to put it, making right should they be elected. But this is the important one for us right now. Reverse the chronic disease epidemic. It says here, an epidemic of chronic disease is engulfing our nation. Obesity, diabetes, autoimmune diseases, autism, cancer, and mental illness is at record levels, especially among young people. These diseases cause untold misery and drain the vitality from our nation's economy. Chronic diseases cost the economy over $4 trillion a year and dwarfs even defense as the big drain on the federal budget. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. knows how to turn it around, and he will bring that knowledge into the Trump administration. With President Trump's backing, he will reorient federal health agencies toward chronic diseases and rid them of Big Pharma's influence. He will ban the hundreds of food additives and chemicals that other countries have already prohibited. He will change regulations, research topics, and subsidies to reduce the dominance of ultra-processed food. He will clean up toxic chemicals from our air, water, and soil. He will ensure that research into pharmaceutical drugs, pesticides, additives, and environmental chemicals is scientifically unbiased. Just 2 generations ago, America was the healthiest country in the world. It can be that way again. We can make America healthy again. Now, those claims are interesting. Is America that unhealthy? This is a summary from the National Library of Medicine, essentially saying that the US is, quote, among the wealthiest nations in the world, but it is far from the healthiest. Although life expectancy and survival rates in the United States have improved dramatically over the past century, Americans live shorter lives and experience more injuries and illness than people in other high-income countries. So, yeah, he's correct. And his promises sound, on paper, very good. The idea that we should make our food or air and water in any country you happen to live in less toxic or with less chemicals, less additives, it's scientifically sound, it's logical, it makes sense to me. And I hope that, though I'm not American, other countries, including mine, will adopt such policies if they become popular in America, because America is really the leader that everybody copies in many aspects. The idea of making a healthier world where people suffer less illness and are therefore more available in terms of their energy and time and willpower to make their way in life, to succeed in their endeavors. I think it's not just better for you individually, it also creates a better society to live in, with less problems and more people that you can depend on, and just a system that it's easier to move up in because it's not lethargic. And I think people who are not themselves well, not only do they not do well, but they are less likely to appreciate somebody else doing well next to them. It just feels as though how to put it, you don't have the energy for the competition, and you don't have the ability to appreciate other people doing well. Anyway, that may just be me. So, who is pushing for chemicals and additives in air, water, food, etc.? Well, here's an example from Time magazine. Why one dietitian is speaking up for ultra-processed foods. This is basically a fluff piece for all those foods rich in chemicals and poor nutrition that you see in supermarkets everywhere. And before we read it, just think about it. The Food and Drugs Administration is receiving its funding from the people it's supposed to regulate. Is it any wonder that cheap and addictive components find a way into your food and your medicine if that is the case? There's obviously a conflict of interest here. It's nothing that should surprise anybody. And it's not just things that they put in the food, it's also things they spray on the food, like pesticides and such. I recently saw a research paper on the fact that pesticides are not removed when you wash the fruit because they sink through the peel and into the fruit itself. This will not end unless we take a stand as consumers and demand healthier food. And we also should support politicians that promise us they will remove as much as possible harmful substances from air, water, food, etc. So this is one of the main reasons I very much hope that Kennedy Jr. gets a health-related position in the Trump administration. Like I said, America is the leader in many aspects in the world today, and if they make the changes, hopefully the rest of us will too. So let's read a bit from this article, which, spoiler alert, I think is utterly ludicrous. Basically, it says it all started in the summer of 2023 when author and infectious disease physician Dr. Chris Van Tulleken, I apologize if I'm butchering your name, was promoting his book, Ultra Processed People. While writing it, Van Tulleken spent a month eating mostly foods like chips, soda, bagged bread, frozen food, and cereal. What happened to me is exactly what the research says would happen to everyone, Van Tulleken says. He felt worse, he gained weight, his hormone levels went crazy, and before and after MRI scans showed signs of changes in his brain. Yeah, that's entirely altogether frightening, honestly. Changes in your brain from just eating the food. I mean, the rest of it obviously isn't good either, but at least for me personally, that sounds like the worst of it. As Van Tulleken saw it, the experiment highlighted the terrible emergency of society's love affair with ultra-processed foods. Wilson, who specializes in working with clients from marginalized groups, was irked. She felt that Van Tulleken's experiment was over-sensationalized and that the news coverage of it shamed people who regularly eat processed foods. In other words, the vast majority of Americans, particularly the millions who are food insecure or have limited access to fresh food. He's not shaming you, he's warning you about the danger you're in, the harm that is being caused to you, and he's advocating for a change in the way society prepares food in order to make available to you better options. He's not attacking you, he's protecting you. They also They also tend to be lower income and people of color. Because of course it's racist to try and tell you that ultra-processed food is hurting you. Everything is racist today. Wilson felt the buzz ignored this food apartheid. What a wonderful name for it. Again, you are concentrating on you being poor so you can't, not you, but people being poor so they can't afford good food. Therefore we should say that bad food is good, as opposed to fixing the problems. As well as the massive diversity of foods that can be considered ultra-processed. a category that includes everything from vegan meat replacements and non-dairy milks to potato chips and candy. I don't think vegan meat is any more healthy than candy, and there's a lot of research to back that. How can this entire category of foods be something we're supposed to avoid? Wilson wondered. Easy, because it's bad for you. So she did her own experiment. Like Van Tulleken, Wilson for a month got 80% of her daily calories from highly processed foods, not much more than the average American, which is awful. She swapped her morning eggs for soy chorizo and replaced her thrown together lunches, sometimes as simple as beans of avocado and hot sauce, with Trader Joe's ready-to-eat tamales. She snacked on cashew milk yogurt with jam. For dinner, she'd have one of her beloved Costco pasas, whatever, or maybe chicken sausages with veggies and tater tots. She wasn't subsisting on Fritos, but these were also decidedly not whole foods. A weird thing happened. Wilson found that she had more energy and less anxiety. She didn't need as much coffee to get through the day and felt more motivated. She felt better eating an ultra-processed diet than she did before, a change she attributes to taking in more calories by eating full meals instead of haphazard combinations of whole food ingredients. How could two people eating the same type of foods have such different experiences? And could it be true that not all ultra-processed foods deserve a bad reputation? I want to pause here and say she provided none of the medical data that the Van Tulleken man did. He provided MRI scans, he provided blood works, he provided hormone levels, everything. She provided nothing but her personal opinion, which could very well be paid for by the food industry. We don't know, but there could be a conflict of interest, and even if there wasn't, she could be lying in order to make a sensationalized article. All I'm saying is that she provided no data to back up her claims, unlike that man who also depended on a large body of work that proves the same point he's trying to make, whereas she's opposing pretty much every research paper ever based on "I felt like that." So, these hotly debated questions came at a crucial moment. In 2025, the US government will release an updated version of the dietary guidelines for Americans, which tell people what they should eat and policymakers how to shape things like school lunches and SNAP education programs. Therefore, there's a lot of money on the line, and this is obviously crooked. The new edition may include for the first time guidance on ultra-processed foods. Officials at the US Food and Drug Administration, we are back here, are also reportedly weighing new regulatory approaches for these products. The food industry predictably maintains that ultra-processed foods have been unfairly demonized and can be part of a healthy diet. Likely sensing a threat to their bottom line, large food companies have reportedly already started lobbying against recommendations around processed food consumption. What's more surprising is that even one dietitian would take their side, defending a group of foods that, according to 2024 research, have been linked to dozens of poor health outcomes ranging from depression and diabetes to cancer, cardiovascular disease, and cognitive impairment. Wilson has endured plenty of criticism for her position, which is not popular among the nutrition science establishment. But she stands by it. Notice how they phrase it. Not popular among the nutrition science establishment. She has the backing of the people who fund the FDA, but she's not part of the establishment. She's a fresh-faced rebel. Pull the other one, it's got bells on it. But she stands by it. Sweeping recommendations to avoid all ultra-processed foods stand to confuse people and make them feel bad about their diets, Wilson says, with questionable upsides for their health. Basically, the rest of this long article is all about why it's fine to eat ultra-processed foods and why they're good for you, or at least not that bad. And essentially, maybe there's a few bad eggs, but really, eat them, it's fine. Let's just read the conclusion because I can't be bothered with the entire thing. It says, after her experiment last summer, Wilson also continues to eat plenty of processed foods and to feel good about it. To her, the debate is about more than food. It's also about the realities of living in a country where grocery prices are spiking and lots of people simply don't have the resources to eat 3 home-cooked meals made from fresh ingredients every single day. People often assume that a dietitian's day is telling people to eat less, Wilson says. But she says she spends far more time helping people figure out how to eat more, whether because they're trying to feed a family on a tight budget, or because they simply don't have time and energy to cook, and how to add nutrient-rich foods to their diet in a way that's affordable. For some of these people, ultra-processed foods may be the difference between going to bed hungry or full, Wilson says. She'd pick full every time. So, why are you advocating for eating a bad diet as if it's the only choice going forward, instead of saying we need to make a change to regulations, to priorities, in order to make available good food to the general public, even including poor people? If people are suffering from food insecurity, then regulate basic foods that everybody eats in order to make them healthy. There's no reason that you should have so many chemicals in your bread. Even in my country here in Israel, we have tons of chemicals in bread, and I had to be very careful in what I buy in order to avoid them. And it's in other basic foods as well. But not to mention, pretty much anything that comes prepackaged has a ton of E this and E that, and all sorts of, let's just say, long names that are definitely not very good for you. How about we just get that out of your food, and then you can eat normal, healthy things. That's the promise basically of RFK Jr. I hope it works for you guys. I hope we import that good decision. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.